This episode is brought to you by Netflix. So Netflix is basically Santa this year. 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, streaming live. At 1 p.m. Eastern, it's Cowboys, Commanders. Then at 4:30, you've got Lions, Vikings. Midwest football, playoff stakes, and probably some snow. Watching holiday football is a tradition the whole family can enjoy. Open some gifts, grab some food, settle in, and watch NFL Live on Netflix this Christmas Day.
From pop culture to politics, this is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day with all kinds of significant news. Is America really going to war? Are we going to war against Venezuela? President Trump has ordered a total and complete blockade of sanctioned oil tankers coming to and leaving Venezuela, trying to make sure that he squeezes out the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and gets rid of that regime. And the problem here is a total and complete blockade is, under international law, an act of war. So what is going on? Maybe we'll find out with President Trump's big primetime address to the nation. And this is also extraordinary and unexpected. He announced last night President Trump will deliver a live televised address from the White House this evening. He will be coming on the air at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. He said on his Truth Social, "My fellow Americans, I will be giving an address to the nation," that's all in caps, "tomorrow night, live from the White House at 9 p.m. EST. Trump wrote that Tuesday in a Truth Social post announcing the address. "I look forward to seeing you then. It has been a great year for our country," said the president, "and the best is yet to come." Now, the truth of the matter is that most Americans don't really agree that it's been just a great year. So is he going to try with this new address to the nation to make us believe that it has been, in fact, a great year? The address comes as Trump approaches the 1-year mark, this is from The Hill, of his second administration. The president has faced blowback from critics recently for his messaging on affordability ahead of the midterms and his focus on foreign policy. The president appears now to be turning his attention increasingly to domestic matters, traveling to the battleground state of Pennsylvania last week to tout his administration's efforts to fight inflation. He is also slated to visit battleground North Carolina on Friday. Okay, so he's treating this all as a major campaign. Will this speech be about Venezuela? Will it be about affordability, which is the word of the moment for Democrats? And it's a losing struggle, Jason Riley says in the Wall Street Journal, for President Trump to continue talking about how affordability is a hoax, affordability is a scam, affordability is a con job by the Democrats, there is no affordability problem. Well, the American people feel differently. Jason Riley of the Wall Street Journal is going to be joining us a little bit later in the show, talking about how Donald Trump's affordability failures will cost him. The economy, he writes, has gone from one of the president's best issues with American voters, it got him elected, to one of his worst and his weakest. What can he do to change that situation? Meanwhile, there is even more going on. Is the war on Venezuela a wag the dog situation? Right before the Epstein files are due to be released. There are 2 more days before everything has to be released. And this is based upon a congressional resolution that was signed by President Trump. There is low polling. There is difficult and tough economic news, the unemployment rate that is suddenly the highest in 4 years. It has not been a golden age. And just in, the House is going to vote on the Obamacare subsidies extension after some Republicans have defected. Will that be enough defections to keep those subsidies propping up Obamacare? Because most Republicans don't like that. Or will this be a spectacular and new Republican setback in the Congress of the United States? Meanwhile, remember Dan Bongino, the associate director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the FBI? He is the number 2 guy right after Patel, Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. The report from the New York Times, Dan Bongino is clearing out his office. Why? Because he is preparing to exit from the FBI. His choice, or President Trump's choice, may be his choice. Meanwhile, Jack Smith, the prosecutor, veteran Justice Department official and prosecutor, who now is being attacked legally with lawfare by the Trump administration, the Trump Department of Justice. Jack Smith has claimed openly that he has proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump conspired to overturn the 2020 election. Okay, we need proof beyond a reasonable doubt more than President Trump saying again and again and again and again that the election was stolen? He's still saying that the election was stolen, and he's still obsessed with the election of 2020. And meanwhile, the Brown shooter, that's not a description of the shooter, it's a description of where he shot. He shot at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, killed 2 students, wounded nearly 10 others. And one way that the Brown University attack was unusual, the gunman has so far escaped. It is rare for a gunman in a high-profile shooting to get away, and many are apprehended within days. The authorities shared grainy video and begged for tips as the search stretched into its 4th day. They do tell you that based upon the images that they've captured and security cameras, this is an individual who's about 5 feet 8 inches tall. He is not particularly tall. He is heavy set and paunchy. And that's the guy they're looking for. Could be one of any number of millions of people right now. Days after a mass shooting at Brown University left 2 students dead and 9 others hospitalized, authorities in Providence, Rhode Island are still searching for the suspect. Yesterday, law enforcement released a new photo, an enhanced video showing a person of interest in the hours leading up to Saturday's attack. Authorities hope that the videos, which detail the person's body movements, posture, gait, and other patterns, will help to identify the individual. Meanwhile, the campus remains on edge, and Rhode Island's governor has ordered a sweeping review of school safety measures. At least 75 school shootings have unfolded this year in the U.S. Amazing. And then concerning murder that does not involve shooting, that involves stabbing of both a father and a mother, their son, Nick Reiner, appeared in a Los Angeles courthouse today for the first time since he was accused of killing his parents. Rob Reiner, comedian, director, Hollywood giant, actually, and Michelle Singer Reiner, who's a photographer. She actually did the photograph of the author for Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, his best-selling book. Yes, that's a photograph by the murdered Michelle Reiner. The arraignment was pushed back till January 7th. The second time it was delayed. since Nick Reiner was arrested on Sunday in connection with his parents' death. While in court Wednesday, the 32-year-old was wearing what appeared to be an all-blue vest. He only offered 3 words during his brief appearance. 3 words, "Yes, Your Honor."
This is Jason Momoa, and I'll be your finance professor today. Welcome to Banking Smarter 101 with Chime. Bam! First lesson, sign up for Chime and set up direct deposit. You'll be joining millions of members banking fee-free. Second lesson, get cash back on eligible purchases while building credit and a higher APY on your savings. That's how you bank smarter this season. Fa-la-la-la-la, class dismissed. Join Chime today.
Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and a secure Chime Visa credit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Optional services and products may have fees or charges. Details at chime.com/feesinfo. With a qualifying direct deposit, earn 1.5% cash back on eligible secure Chime Visa credit card purchases. On-time payment history may have a positive impact on your credit score. Results may vary. APY means annual percentage yield. Learn about credit building and more at chime.com.
Santa Claus is coming to town.
Well, there's a little ditty just to introduce a news bulletin about people who are not coming to town. They're leaving town. They're getting out of town, getting out of Dodge. What am I talking about? It turns out that more than 10% of the current Congress has now indicated they won't return to their seats after the 2026 midterms. Driven by redistricting, retirements, and lawmakers now running for different offices, and also the dysfunctionality of Congress and the problems with the Speaker, Mike Johnson, who doesn't seem that he can get anything done. And particularly with waiting for the voting on the supplements for Affordable Care Act recipients, something that will impact 22 million people, which means 22 million families, which means it's more people than that who are implemented or implicated in this change of policy, which is due to start just in literally a couple of days. Okay, so more than a tenth of the current Congress has now indicated they will not return to their seats. That includes people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who won't even return to her seat before the election of 2026. According to NPR's Congressional Retirement Tracker, as of December 17th, which would be today, there are 54 current representatives and senators who are retiring or running for a different office, 10 senators and 44 House members. So literally, with the House as closely divided as it is, with the Democrats only needing to capture 5 seats to take control of the House, and this is pending the uncertainty about the reapportionment fights that are still going on. President Trump just lost a reapportionment fight in Indiana, despite the very strong Republican control of that state legislature. All of this not a happy time to be part of Congress. There is also more on the president's order for, in his words, a complete and total blockade of sanctioned oil tankers coming to and leaving Venezuela. President Donald Trump said that he is ordering a complete and total blockade of sanctioned oil tankers, ratcheting up pressure against leader Nicolas Maduro's regime, and suggesting an economic motive to the U.S. military campaign in the region. Punctuating the words total and complete blockade in capital letters, well, of course he would, in a Truth Social post, Trump pointed to the large collection of U.S. military assets in the region, and he suggested more would be coming and took aim at Maduro's regime by name. He also suggested Venezuela give up land, oil, and assets to the United States. Well, sure. making clear that one aim of his military campaign is not just about countering the drug trade. That explanation seems to have gone into the background. And Trump said Tuesday night, last night, that Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. Okay, you don't use the term armada. They didn't do well. They tried this against England. Remember the Spanish Armada? It was a big disaster. They lost all their ships. But he uses it anyway. It will only get bigger, the American Armada. And the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us, Trump said Tuesday night. Who did they steal from, precisely? Do we own the land in Venezuela, and based upon what claim? They're private American companies and British companies, Dutch companies, other companies that have something to do with taking oil out of the ground. But combined with Trump's threat of land strikes on Venezuelan soil, the move ratcheted up pressure on Caracas by going after its economic lifeline, which had already come under strain after new sanctions on the oil sector earlier this year and last week's seizure of a tanker, the Skipper, full of Venezuelan oil. Venezuela slammed the announcement in a Tuesday statement, calling it a reckless and serious threat. Is it a threat to Venezuela? It is indeed. Would it be a threat to the United States if we actually go to war with a South American power? It would not be a popular move, and who knows whether it will be a successful move by any standard. Trump's announcement underscored the president's focus on the country's oil, which he has said the U.S. should have access to if Maduro is ousted. State-owned Petróleos de Venezuela controls the country's petroleum industry. A Houston-based Chevron is the only U.S. firm drilling in Venezuela and pays a percentage of its output to Venezuela under a sanctions carve-out. The Trump administration has launched strikes at suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean, and the president has said repeatedly strikes on land will come soon. Officials had largely framed the operation as being about countering the narcotics trade, but Vanity Fair on Tuesday published interviews in which White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles indicated the effort was all about putting pressure on Maduro to step aside. The statement from Venezuela's government decried the move, saying Trump seeks to impose in an absolutely irrational manner a so-called naval blockade on Venezuela with the aim of stealing the riches that belong to our homeland. The Justice Department memo from 1961, when tensions were running high between the U.S. and Cuba and the Soviet Union, that memo said the president could institute a blockade of Cuba, but noted that this is a Justice Department memo of 1961, but noted a blockade as a belligerent act which, as a matter of international law, is ordinarily justified only in a state of war, legal or de facto, if that state of war exists. State of war with Venezuela, state of war with Republicans in Congress versus the Democratic minority on the issue of affordability and more. Will those subjects also come up in the president's speech tonight? We'll get to that and more coming up on the Medved Show.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
And the number of countries that are facing travel restrictions to the U.S. has grown significantly. Yesterday, President Trump signed a proclamation expanding the list of countries with full or partial travel restrictions. It was 19 countries he announced, mostly third world countries, the kind of nation that President Trump previously described as an S-hole nation. Well, now it's gone up. There are 39 countries now, where the White House said the listed countries demonstrate severe deficiencies in screening, vetting, and information sharing. The move comes as President Trump intensifies his immigration crackdown, citing the November shooting in Washington, D.C. that killed one National Guard member and critically wounded another. And meanwhile, there's also more about the new federal law signed by President Trump, passed almost unanimously, only one dissenting vote by the Congress. That law requires the Justice Department to release a massive trove of investigative files related to Jeffrey Epstein. That has to be completed by Friday. It's coming up. And by the way, how many photographs are included in this massive file? 95,000. It's a lot of photographs to look at, no matter how salacious they are. The documents detail probes into the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender who died in 2019. Epstein survivors have said they hope to see perpetrators' names in the files. The upcoming release comes after Congress passed a law last month requiring the Justice Department to release all Epstein-related files in its custody. President Trump fought hard to stop the law, but signed it after being outmaneuvered by a bipartisan groundswell of support from lawmakers. It's unclear exactly which records will be made public and how much of the material will be new. I mean, obviously, a great deal of this has happened before. The campaign also continues. President Trump has issued his intention, and he will surely be speaking about this tonight, to address the economic issues of affordability that are helping to undermine his presidency and undermine his party's chances in the midterm elections of next year, of 2026. J.D. Vance has also been sent off to do. He's vice president, nothing better to do. So he gave a speech in Pennsylvania and purportedly came to the defense of the now embattled White House Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, who gave 10 different on-the-record interviews, some counts say 11, but published in Vanity Fair. Here is J.D. Vance speaking about the White House Chief of Staff, clip 5.
And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really... You know what they are. And you know why I really love Susie Wiles? Because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around. I've never seen Susie Wiles say something to the president and then go and counteract him or subvert his will behind the scenes. And that's what you want in a staffer. Because as much as I love Susie, the American people didn't elect any staffer. They elected the president of the United States.
Again, to say the American people didn't elect any staffer is a way of taking removing your responsibility, or the president's responsibility, for the people he assigns and selects for the most important and decisive jobs in politics. And this is also when you talk about somebody who says one thing to the president to his face and another thing behind his back. Back in 2016, somebody called the president of the United States, soon to be president, because he was elected in 2016, called him the American Hitler. Now, who would say such a thing? And how would President Trump react? Well, President Trump reacted by picking the guy who had called him the American Hitler as his vice president. And the basic wisdom of J.D. Vance concerning Susie Wiles and more and relations with the press, here is the wisdom of the Veep, clip 4.
And what you want in a staffer is a person who understands they are there to effectuate the will of the American people, and they're there to follow the orders of the duly elected commander-in-chief of the United States. And Susie Wiles, we have our disagreements. We agree on much more than we disagree, but I've never seen her be disloyal to the president of the United States, and that makes her the best White House chief of staff that I think the president could ask for. And the last thing I'll say is if any of us have learned a lesson from that Vanity Fair article, I hope that the lesson is we should be giving fewer interviews to mainstream media outlets.
Well, that's right. Shout out. We should be giving fewer interviews. Why? What are you planning to hide? Chris Whipple, the guy who interviewed Wiles for Vanity Fair, who's a historian who has written in the past about White House staffs and the way they're used or misused by different presidents. He was on a CNN panel and talking about the criticisms of his interviews, claiming that they lacked context, that they were actually fake news, that they were attempts to discredit the administration. Here is Chris Whipple responding, clip 18.
I mean, when you hear words like out of context and omissions and framing, what that tells you right away is that you have hit the target. They have nothing, they literally have not challenged a single assertion or fact in the piece. And so, to me, this reminds me of Ben Bradley during the Watergate days, who talked about non-denial denials. This is a classic non-denial denial. They're not contesting any of the substance of the piece because they know it's true.
Is that because you recorded the interviews?
And every interview was recorded. Everything is on tape. And so they know that they just can't go there.
And that, it seems to me, is a perfectly adequate and better than adequate, solid response. And he also talks about these tape-recorded interviews with Susie Wiles, which he now wants to disown. But we will get to that. Coming up, we're going to be speaking with Jason Riley of the Wall Street Journal, who writes the Upward Mobility column in the Journal, where that has run every week since 2016. He's also a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, writing about how the affordability issue is right now harming and threatening and undermining the Trump presidency and the Republican prospects of holding their majorities in the House and Senate. So what could President Trump do? What could he announce tonight that would change public opinion back in his direction? We will get to that with Jason Riley of the Wall Street Journal coming up on the Medved Show.
Rated E for everyone. Includes in-game purchases. Includes random items. EA Sports FC 26 is here. Play your way this holiday season with an overhauled gameplay experience powered by community feedback. Enjoy festive upgrades in Ultimate Team with winter wildcards. Take on holiday-themed challenges and manage your career, like navigating the busy Christmas period. And team up with friends and clubs with new tournaments and live events. The club is yours. Give the gift of football with EA Sports FC 26.
And on the Michael Medved Show, it is a pleasure always to welcome back to the show Jason Riley, whose Upward Mobility, that's the title of his column, his Upward Mobility column every week provides insight and provocation and sometimes entertainment. There's a little bit of all of that in his most recent column with the headline, Donald Trump's affordability failures will cost him. The economy has gone from one of the president's best issues with American voters, got him elected, to one of his worst. Jason, thanks very much for joining us again. What do you think President Trump is planning to say or do regarding this issue of affordability, which he's also derided as a hoax and as a Democratic con job? What's he likely to say with his big speech to the country tonight?
Well, I would expect him to defend the economy. If past his prologue, Michael, he's been out there, as you said, on some days he says it's a hoax, that things aren't going well, driven by mainstream media that doesn't like him. He's also said that people don't realize how good the economy is, suggesting that people aren't particularly intelligent or that they're delusional about what they're seeing in terms of sticker shock, in terms of energy prices, in terms of prices for certain foods and cars and houses and so forth. So I expect to see a little bit of both. He's not someone who typically backs down, and he's really embraced tariffs as a sort of all-purpose tool for fixing the U.S. economy and producing economic growth. And I suspect he'll stay the course, which I don't think is the wise thing to do. But like I said, he's not someone who typically changes course very often.
Well, you make the point in your column that it's not always the best way to win popularity contests to be addressing the general public as stupid and blind and mistaken about their own financial situation. In other words, what do we have? 76% now who say that they believe the American economy is not functioning well. We just had the highest unemployment rate in 4 years. What does he do to try to bring American people back to that belief in a golden age of America?
Well, I think he's hurting himself. First, he has done some good things here. He said he would secure the border in terms of reducing illegal immigration. I think he's done a pretty good job of that. And I think the media has even come around to acknowledging that in recent months. But I also think that the tariffs have been a self-inflicted wound. They have not produced the manufacturing boom, the job manufacturing boom that he promised. Remember, that's how they were initially sold. What we now know is that over the past year, net manufacturing jobs have been reduced in this country. So the very jobs he said would grow have shrunk in terms of the number of available manufacturing jobs in this country. And again, he was elected saying he would bring prices down. Prices have not come down for many goods. He seems to realize this to some extent because he's reversed tariffs on things like bananas and coffee. But he's left them in place on steel and aluminum and so forth, again, to the detriment of those industries and to the detriment of job growth in those industries, auto parts, things that use components like aluminum and steel. We have not seen the job growth in those areas. Housing is another area where, mortgage rates have come down, but a lot of people still cannot afford to buy a home. I think the figures I saw that around, if you had an income of around $75,000 pre-COVID, that was enough money to buy about half of the listings out there. Today, it's down to about, you can afford about 21% of the listings out there. So there are many areas, I think, where those prices have not come down. People have noticed. They're trying to tell him that, and it's just a matter of whether he'll accept that reality.
What if he relies on one of his favorite themes, which is it's all Joe Biden's fault? I was handed the worst economy in the history of the universe. Things were breaking apart. And look how much better off we are in December of 2025 than we were in January of 2025 when I took over. So I've brought us closer to a golden age, right? Because Biden was the worst.
I think we're going to hear some of that tonight in his speech. That is one of his default arguments. But let's remember, that was also Joe Biden's argument, that he had inherited a mess, and also that people didn't realize how good things really were. So both of those things were tried by his predecessor, and we see how well that worked out for Joe Biden. So I don't think it's a winning strategy for Donald Trump. And also the Fox News poll that you mentioned earlier is from last month, November. So regardless of whether Trump thinks that this is all Joe Biden's fault, the public thinks that it is Trump's policies that are contributing mostly to the current situation. They think that Donald Trump owns this economy right now, and they are holding him responsible according to the polling. And frankly, one of the other things I think we'll hear, Michael, is that tariffs have brought in all this revenue. We're making all this money off of other countries through these trillions of dollars. But he's also using that revenue to bail out people and industries that have been hurt by those very tariffs, such as farmers. So again, I don't think these arguments really hold up. I don't think the American public is buying them. And I don't think the Supreme Court, frankly, is going to be on his side in terms of the legitimacy of these tariffs. Right now, the Supreme Court is trying to determine or considering whether these emergency tariffs are legal. And I was reading about these oral arguments, and you never want to read too much into oral arguments, but most of the justices didn't seem to buy Donald Trump's arguments that these emergency tariffs were necessary for economic or national security. He may very well lose that case. And I think that's an opportunity for him to pivot away from the tariffs and say to the American people, hey, I gave it a shot. The Supreme Court struck down my tariffs, so I'm going to have to go another route here. I think that would be the wise thing for him to do, given that the tariffs are both unpopular politically and have not produced the lower costs of living that he said they would.
Other than a reversal on the tariff issue, where I strongly agree with you, I think the entire tariff idea is a big government mistake. What else should Trump emphasize in his next year, having completed his first year now, about the economy?
I think, and this is related, I think, frankly, but I mentioned immigration earlier. Donald Trump was elected on a promise to reduce illegal immigration. He has done a very good job of doing that. But he also said, Michael, that he would be focusing on illegal immigrants who commit crimes, violent crimes in particular. And that has not been his only focus. He's raiding Home Depot parking lots. He's raiding workplaces. He's deporting college students. I don't think this is going over well politically for him. I also think that it contributes to economic uncertainty. It's one of the reasons businesses are reluctant to hire more people. It's one of the reasons they're reluctant to invest. They're worried about their workforce. We have a labor shortage in this country and have for a long time. And by Trump going after immigrant workers, people who are here illegally, I will acknowledge that, but are not violent criminals, I think he's creating a bunch of uncertainty in the labor market and in the business community, which is, again, not helping in terms of economic growth.
And it's one of the reasons that the polling shows that when people are asked, how do you think Trump is doing on border security? When you use the term border security, he gets very high ratings, as you just gave him. And however, when you ask about the issue of immigration generally and this effort to deport, what is the goal? 9 million people, something like that, to deport everyone, the ratings for immigration are much, much lower. Jason Riley's column, Donald Trump's affordability failures will cost him, and talks about how the economy has gone from one of his best issues to one of his weakest issues. Jason Riley, always a pleasure speaking with you, and you and your family should enjoy a wonderful holiday season and a spectacular, better than ever New Year.
Same to you, Michael.
Who knows? Maybe even with that golden age. We will be right back on the Medved Show with more on what happened in Australia and the reaction which continues to Trump's comments and insights and attitudes toward the death of Rob Reiner in this greatest nation on God's green earth.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. Mm-hmm. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.